I remember being asked the same questions over and over again, and all I would say is I do not recall. I'd be asked, do you recognize the men sitting there? I'd be like, no, I do not recall. Most of the things they asked me, I could not recall. Yeah. And my mom was with me every day. She was really supportive. If I complained about anything, if I said I can't handle this, she would have stopped everything. But the experience of going to court for me, that wasn't the hard part. The hard part was those people being in court, having to look them in the eye and thinking, because of you and because of your decision, I'm going to have to grow up without a father.
The 4 accused persons the court charged had met somewhere in Nakuru where they hatched a plot to kill Babu Achieng after he refused to take a bribe of 280,000 shillings from one of them. Therefore, the prosecution claimed had wanted the magistrate to dismiss a case touching on one of them, but he declined. A decision was then made to have him killed. The 4 appeared before Justice Mutitu and were accused of moving to Nairobi, where they spent a night at a city hotel before executing their deadly plot.
When I saw them, you feel bad, but what can you do? I can't remember so well, but I didn't even want to look at them.
The trial will take a turn after the suspect disowned their own confession statements, claiming they had been tortured by the police. One of the key witnesses, who had told the court that he was aware how the plot to have Babu Achieng killed was hatched, disowned his own statement in court. The trial will run into headwinds after the Justice Ringera purge of judiciary claimed the career of Justice Mutitu, who was presiding over the trial of the 4. In December 2003, the trial was declared a mistrial. The 4 accused suspects were charged afresh before Justice Kalpana Rawal. The prosecution lined up 15 witnesses, but from the onset, it appeared the trial was set to fail. After several years on trial, the court assessors returned a not guilty verdict, a verdict Justice Kalpana Rawal upheld.
Perpetrators of the offense were not found, the true perpetrators, or they were found, but the investigations that were done were not good enough to justify conviction. So to that extent, I don't feel that we received justice. Yeah. The system that he worked for 20 years eventually failed him because he was actually a criminal. He was a criminal magistrate, and that's what he did for the 20 years. But unfortunately, when he needed it the most, it didn't come through.
Indeed, the prosecution carried out a shoddy job. Justice Kalpana Rawal wondered why the prosecution failed to produce in court a post-mortem report, one of the most key evidence in a murder trial. The court will have looked the other way if the defense had claimed that Babu Achieng had not been killed because the prosecution had failed to produce in court evidence indicating that indeed the judicial officer had indeed died of a gunshot injury. As far as the court was concerned, Babu Achieng had not died because there was no post-mortem report. Justice Kalpana Rawal told the prosecution it had relied on circumstantial evidence but failed to link any of the 4 suspects to the murder of the slain judicial officer. The judge blasted the police for conducting shoddy investigations, wondering why, despite recovering the slain chief magistrate's motor vehicle, they failed to have it dusted for fingerprints. In July 2004, almost 5 years since the brutal assassination of Babu Achieng, John Maina Kinyua, John Njoroge Njagi, and Dr. David Midhamo Nderitu was set free. The prosecution had failed to prove beyond reasonable doubt their case against the accused. The 4th accused person, Henry Ajega Josam, had since died while in prison. Neremi says the trial of the 4 accused persons years later had her convinced that her father was not coming home after all.
For, I think, till I was 12, for around 7 years, I thought that I was in a dream. I thought I was dreaming. Like all the days that passed throughout those 7 years, I thought I was dreaming. And one day I just woke up and realized this is not a dream. He's never coming back. And then after that phase finished, I went to a phase where I felt like if I prayed enough, it would be possible to resurrect him. Yeah, so I went through that phase, and then it reached the point where I had to testify. And that's when it hit me. He's not coming back, he's not resurrecting, and like this really happened.
With the trial failing to nab the will-be killers of the chief magistrate, the responsibility of raising Babu's children now lay on the troubled shoulders of the widow.
I look back and Dennis, I thank God. There is, actually, I owe nobody nothing except God, because I don't think without him I would have done anything. And when my husband died, there are 2 things that I decided. I made up my mind just to love God and to serve God more than I had done before, and also to educate my children. In me, I did not want any of them one day to say, if my father was there, I would have been so and so. I wanted them to, each person to get 1st degree. From there now, they can champion themselves.
And Babu, now running a successful law firm, says things changed after the father was killed.
He was such a nice father. I think what I would say is he was a very good example of what a father should be. He was so humorous. Like whenever we were together, like the last Christmas we spent together, we were in Nakuru because he was based there. So we had gone there for the holidays, and we went to some hotel there. And he did what he always does, which is make us laugh. He was so humorous. Then as usual, he would provide for us. You know, that's why when he died, my first thought was, what is going to happen to us?
It is not clear why the police conducted short investigations in a murder trial involving a magistrate who had specialized in criminal law. Did the police look the other way and let Babu Achieng's killers walk away, or did they bring before the court people who had nothing to do with his killing?
Now when I sit down, I have his pictures in my office, and I'm like, you can imagine having another lawyer in the family? That would have been so awesome. And he specialized in criminal law. I have never practiced criminal law. So I'm thinking by now he probably would have retired, because I think the retirement age was like 55 or something like that. And I would have loved to have him on as a consultant or something like that. So I miss the intellectual part of him. I miss not having somebody else to discuss the law with. And I mean, he was top of his class in campus in the UK. So I mean, I can only imagine how we would have interacted on issues law, but we also miss his presence, his solving of issues, his bringing people together.
She never showed us until we got old enough to realize what she went through, you know. I've never seen my mom crying ever since, you know, my dad died. She never shed a tear. I could never see. So I found out that she sheds tears in her, you know, in her room when no one is, you know, seeing such things. But she became a warrior. She became a fighter, you know, being left with all these girls. And we were also so close to both of them, but more so my dad, that, you know, we also started developing relationships with my mom and became very close. But it took a lot. And I think most so what we can say as a family is it's taken God. I mean, without God, I don't know where I would be.
For Neremi, now in our final year in campus, the image of our father lying on the ground in a pool of blood has taken time to go away.
I miss the small things. Like I see my friends, like when their parents call them and they actually have a contact on their phone written daddy. I have never had that. The small things of a dad calling you to check up on him, or even having an issue with a boy somewhere and your dad being protective, they robbed me of an experience. They did. They really did. I miss everything about him. And what pains me the most is the fact that I was 5. I didn't get to know him that well. My sisters were older, I think one of my sisters was even about to join university, so they were older. I can't tell you how he laughed. I can't tell you how he talked. I know nothing. And it's been hard for me not to be bitter about it. It's been hard for me not to deal with the trauma in a bad way. It's not every 5-year-old who will watch their parent being assassinated in front of them. Not everyone has that experience. When I joined primary, I really struggled because I had nothing in common with anyone. No one could understand the type of trauma I was feeling or what I was feeling inside. And then at the same time, you don't want to bother your family because they are going through the same grief. You don't want to stress anyone further. So I really had to learn to be emotionally independent.
If the slain chief magistrate will be alive today, the criminal lawyer turned magistrate will have been 68 years old. It has been 19 years now since Eliza Babu Acheng was gunned down in the presence of his 5-year-old daughter, Neremi Babu. His killers are still at large, and the motive of his killing still remains a mystery. Your favorite TV crime series, Case Files, takes a break. From the entire team behind the production of this good program, we say thank you. This is the only show on Kenyan TV where crime and justice meet. My name is Dendison Sarigo, and this has been Case Files.